Excellent, Dr. Greger. Thank you. Up next, we have DF. DF, if you go ahead and unmute, please.
Hi, Dr. Greger. I collect your books. Thanks for everything you do. I have questions about fat. Is it true that naturally occurring trans fat in animal products may not be totally harmful? Because I remember the IOM, I think they said something like it could be helpful for some people. I'm talking about the trans fat in some animal products. And also, do we need to be concerned with the ratio between like brown adipose tissue versus white adipose tissue? Thank you.
Oh, fantastic questions. I love these questions that are coming through. Normally, when you just kind of have unfiltered questions from attendees on online forums, some of them are just wacky, but that really speaks to the kind of high intellectual prowess of this audience. So kudos to the conference for attracting such smart people. In terms of, hold on, what was the question again? I was so excited about the question. Oh, brown fat versus white fat. What was the first one? Oh, trans fat. Got it. All right. The artificially formed trans fats created by partially hydrogenating soybean oil, typically, versus the natural trans fats actually found in meat and dairy. And the question is, well, wait a second, are those natural trans fats, do they have any different effect on the body than the artificial trans fats? And it turns out they have the same negative reaction. And so there's meta-analysis done. In fact, I did a video about it specifically on that question. So you can actually see the papers, download those PDFs. All my videos have all the sources cited. And so you can just click on the link and actually read the study yourself. And so you just type in trans fats, nutrition facts, that it'll pop right up. And then brown fat versus white fat, absolutely like a whole chapter in How Not to Diet on what we can do to increase our BAT, our brown adipose tissue. And that involves drinking green tea and capsaicin, which is the spicy component of chili peppers, as well as mild cold stress, can all boost your brown adipose tissue, which actually burns fat and to keep you warm. We used to just think it was in the realm of infants. That's how infants stay warm, coming out all wet and slimy. Yeah, how do they possibly stay warm? They do it by having these little heating glands, which burn through fat to warm us up. And we thought that we lost that as kids, but recently discovered no, adults actually have it too down here in the kind of upper shoulder region. And we can actually boost the amount of brown fat, and then so we can like burn all these calories throughout the day without doing anything. There's all sorts of ways we can do that. That's why I hold a chapter on it. So yeah, great question.
Thanks, Dr. Greger. Up next, we have Yaron. Yaron, if you'd go ahead with your question for Dr. Michael Greger.
Hi, so Doctor, first of all, I would like to share with you that thanks to you, a few years ago, I switched to full plant-based diet thanks to your website and your videos. So thank you very much for this.
Right.
I have two quick questions, please. One, there is a debate also in this conference with regarding how healthy nuts and avocado and coconut for heart disease. What is your opinion on this? And my second question, do you familiar with the supplement of licorice root extract and fermented black garlic pills, and how they can help for heart disease?
Absolutely. In fact, boy, I'm gonna bring out some little notepad, make sure I don't miss anything. Okay, black garlic. What was the other supplement?
Licorice root.
Oh yeah, licorice root. Okay, licorice root. And then kind of high-fat plant foods and coronary disease. I think the source of the confusion is that in the late 1970s, were the first kind of quasi-dietary guidelines for Americans were released. They initially came out and said, eat less meat. That freaked out the meat industry, actually lost the senator a position. But so they changed to say eat less fat. Because where's fat found? It's not found in apples and sweet potatoes, it's found in meat and dairy. And so that was kind of their sneaky way of saying reduce meat consumption without actually saying it. And you actually see the similar kind of strains all throughout the dietary guidelines where they say, eat more fruits and vegetables. When they're talking about eat more messaging, it's they say it right out. But when they say eat less messaging, that can make industry upset. So they say eat less saturated and trans fatty acids. That's wink, wink, nudge, nudge for eat less meat, dairy, and junk foods, but they just can't actually come out and name it. Although recently they have been naming soda, saying drink less soda, which is a nice progression. But because of that, because of this kind of, it's like, oh, we need to eat low fat is healthy rather than just eat less meat and dairy. The original studies done by Pritikin and Ornish were using not just plant-based diets, but low fat plant-based diets. Saw this remarkable reversal. Cholecysteine also saw this this beautiful reversal using the same high-fat diets. But if you look at some high-fat whole plant foods such as nuts, and you look at intermediate risk factors like cholesterol levels, LDL cholesterol levels, and arterial function, those all tend to get better eating nuts. And you look at large cohorts of people studied over time, and you see that the nut eaters actually tend to live longer. In fact, significantly longer. There's actually only 2 foods that themselves are associated with longer lifespans. A lot of food components like fiber and carotenoids and things, but in terms of whole foods, the 2 foods found associated with a longer life, dark green leafy vegetables, number 1, and number 2, nuts. So one would presume that adding nuts to a plant-based diet would only add benefits in terms of cardiovascular disease. We saw that in the PREDIMED study with a randomized controlled trial, adding nuts cut stroke risk in half, for example. I would encourage people to eat nuts. In fact, nuts and seeds, that's actually part of my daily dozen checklist of foods. So I encourage people to eat a palmful or an ounce of nuts a day. In terms of other high-fat plant foods, coconut is one of the rare plant sources of saturated fat, the so-called tropical oils. Coconut oil, palm kernel oil, palm oil actually have a lot of saturated fat, like you typically only see in animal fat. And so you give people coconut oil, their LDL cholesterol goes up as if they had lard or something. But what is coconut? Actual whole coconut, like unsweetened coconut flakes or eating a young coconut straight. Coconut actually has plant protein and fiber, both of which lower cholesterol. So if you actually give people coconut, they actually have a neutral effect on cholesterol levels, because the coconut fat is driving your cholesterol up, plant protein fiber is driving it down, so it actually doesn't affect your cholesterol. Now you could say that's great, or you can say, wait a second, that's terrible. You're eating a whole plant food and you're not getting a lowering cholesterol. Most plant foods, right? They have the plant protein, they have the phytosterols, they have the fiber that would all drive your cholesterol down. So why eat something that just has a neutral effect? And avocados also have a protective effect on, for example, short-term artery function, as measured by something called flow-mediated dilation. And in fact, Joel Fuhrman actually published a case series showing reversal, the same kind of heart disease reversal using a high-fat whole food plant-based diet. So it's looking like we can get the same benefits without having to restrict fat. Something I think you'll see later on the panel with probably one of the top experts on fat and health, Brenda Davis, my favorite dietitian of all time.